Okay, hello friends. As you can see, there's some more bags have turned up, and I just wanted to go through some of the new arrivals. So these were ordered about 2 weeks ago, and they've turned up on the Wednesday following. So they're taking about 10-ish days to get here. No, less than that. But I'd say about 7 days to get here, all told. Anyway, package number 1 arrived. Package number 2 is still in transit. It's been hanging out in the Seattle area for a while, but no big deal. So there's a couple of things I wanted to cover in this video. The first one is the stuff I've bought, and then I just want to show you table updates. So let's move the swag off to one side, and we'll look at that in a moment. I just wanted to share with you, so I started painting up that Warlord Games Crimean line regiment, and here are some of the very first test models. You can see I've lost a bayonet there, and I learned a very valuable lesson with this first batch. Can't do 3 to a stick. Reason being, you tend to clatter into the bayonets a fair bit when you're trying to dodge 3 at the same time. I think maybe going on for a polar system where you have 1 on each end and then you can use the middle as a grip might be a slightly better plan moving forward. So we'll see how we do that. I think it's just to do with the bayonets. When I paint the Caesarean stuff, it's a lot easier with 3 on a stick. Not so much of a big deal. But anyway, so that's a lesson learned there. So here I want to show you this first. So this is, let me see if I can get you a good angle, my best possible angle. Right, here we go. So this is my first test figure. This is for the 55th Regiment of Foot. It is a, they are the, well, they're called various things. Borderers, Westmoreland. The book I'm reading at the moment by Peter Gibbs on the Alma calls them the Borderers. But anyway, they are part of the initial wave that went in at the Alma. So they are one of the units I'm painting. So here we go. Let's see if I can get you a better picture there. So this is really my first test figure. Was this one on the end here. I kind of ran him through more or less to completion. He is kind of sort of done. I need to do a little bit of highlighting on the blacks. It didn't take too long. I managed to get the red welt down the side of the trousers, which I was very pleased with. And the red coat came out okay, actually. And for a set of figures, look how he sort of, I don't know if you can see this, but he sort of lurches to the right. They've all got this weird leg thing going on, like they're all kind of stumbling to the right. There's been a night on the town before they went out to go fight, but I've got a few bits and bobs to tidy up on this guy, but he came up pretty nicely, I thought. The musket's not done yet fully, but we're getting there. And yeah, I think for a test figure, not bad. Some interesting details that are probably wrong based upon everything I've seen. Like that in the middle there's like a brass plate on the cross belt. Don't think that's supposed to be there. But I don't know, whatever, conversation for another day, right? So anyway, did the test figure, and then I think I've worked out how I'm going to do my blocking and highlights. So I kind of worked up to this point that you see in the middle in the right hand figure, and then I just ran the guy on the left through to completion because I wanted to see what a finished trooper would look like, or a finished soldier would look like. Trousers, I've gone for a French Mirage blue with a bit of black mixed in. No, incorrect, not French Mirage blue, I lie. I've gone for a Luftwaffe uniform grey, World War II colour, from Vallejo, and then I've used it neat for the highlights, but then mixed in a bit of black. I'm going to go for a variety of trouser colours because there were massive supply issues and kit didn't last very long. So yeah, anyway, I think it looks pretty good. Not a huge fan of the figure sculpt style. Again, I'll get to that when I do a video specifically about the box set, but that's sort of my sort of initial takeaway. Very brittle rifles, rifled muskets. They just break. So I've had one breakage already. I had to actually glue some on from inception. I think 2 of them were broken. So not a perfect start, but once they're ranked up, I'll just make sure that this guy with the flimsy bayonet is put in the middle of a unit somewhere. Which also reminds me, I wanted to, so yes. So before I ramble on, so I wanted to just kind of show you. So I've got their 16, no, not 16, I lie. 12 on the go there, and then another 12 on the go over here. And one thing I did note, that the command figures appear to be slightly different in their style to the to the bulk of the troops. Thicker legs, thicker torso, thicker hands, more barrel-chested, and that's true for the ensigns as well as the drummer. They seem to be slightly different in style to the line, or to the you know, the regular bods in the battalion. So I suspect they might have been made by different sculptors. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my suspicion. Anyway, it makes for a slightly weird looking unit. Not sure I'll buy another box of those. We'll see. Okay, then I wanted to quickly talk about one more thing before I get onto the swag, which is basing. So I've had a lot of thinking about basing. These are 60 by 60 bases, and really wanted to do that. Okay, so 3 bases, 60 by 60, 8 per base. So the bases will be, the troops will be neatly tight together. One of the things that's constantly commented on in the Crimea is how the troops were tightly packed, like they were on a parade ground. The French seem to be in a slightly looser order, because they'd actually bothered fighting a war in the, well, a real war, I guess, quote unquote. So my initial thoughts to go for 3 bases. This allows you to deploy in line. Also, then obviously you could just be in a straight column, and then I suppose for like your Russian types or whatnot, you probably do something like that for an assault column. So with this, the front of the unit there. The other thing I thought of is, okay, well, what if I go for 4 bases, okay, and then the assault column looks a bit neater, the attack column looks a bit neater, the line looks pretty good, and then obviously the column is ludicrously long. And then I would be putting probably 6 figures per base, so they'd be a bit more spread out. The reason I want the 60 by 60s and the slightly deeper bases is I want to avoid the thing where the footprint of your troops is like literally flush with the edge, given that the bayonets are a bit flimsy, and then there are going to be units that have men advancing with their weapons at port or that sort of thing. Maybe even some units of firing men. I wanted to make sure there was plenty of horizontal space to play with. So I'm pretty wedded to the notion of the deeper bases. The only real choice at this point is like whether I'm going to go for 60 wides or 40 wides. So if anybody has any ideas, please do let me know. My personal preference, I will say, is the moment is for the base of 3, like, and then potentially, yeah, like this, and then just have 8 bods on a base. Might look a bit crowded, and it means that essentially you use up all the space left to right per base, but then you do end up with some space at the front and the back, which kind of manages to work around the problem of not wanting to, you know, smack into the bayonets too much or get too close to the figures. Not sure if that'll work. The other thing I like about it is that with an odd number of bases, the command stand is actually central. If I have 4 bases, we end up with a slightly awkward situation where the command base is either going to be slightly off center, which aesthetically to me isn't very pleasing, or I'd have to get clever and basically put some of the command base on this side and some of the command base on this side, and then work outwards, which I suppose is an option as well, but might look a bit daft if you go into a full march column like so, and then you have a situation where you'll have, I suppose if you do it well, you'll have like an ensign and an ensign potentially, like here and here, because obviously they'd have to be married like such, so there'd be a slightly kind of awkward look about it. You'd have an ensign here and an ensign here potentially. I don't know how that would look. So again, if anybody has any advice on that or any thoughts, please let me know. I'm going for a basic unit size of 24, but some units will be size 20. So that means the bases will be less full if we go for the triples like this, right? And they'll be quite sparse if we go for a unit of 20, because at that point we're putting 5 figures on a base, right? So the unit will look a bit more bedraggled, a bit more whittled down. and potentially then that opens up the option to put in some casualty figures on the bases, that kind of thing, which would add in after the fact. Like so, in other words, we'd get most of the battalion done, and then we'd leave a little gap for a casualty figure or something like that. And once we purchase those, we could put him in and then base around him and so on. Anyway, so that's the base chat. I just wanted to talk about that now. I did consider 40 by 40 bases, but that kind of creates the problem again of fingers getting too close to the bayonet tips. So it kind of cuts my real estate down, and then doing 4 per base. And then also you get to the similar problem then where you have your command element, or your command base. Let's imagine for a moment this were 40 by 40 and there were just four blokes on it. You'd probably want like drummer, officer, and then ensign. Now, it wouldn't look too bad at this size because I'd have enough room to breathe, but I think crush this down to a 40mm base and things start getting tight. There's also the option, I suppose, of taking like a 60 by 40 base and just flipping it on its noggin and doing it long ways, right? So, sort of having a 40mm frontage and then having a 60mm depth. But again, I don't know how that'll look. It might look a bit odd. So, if anyone has any comments on that, please do let me know. I am all ears. Enough about bases. So, I've made a start on the first Crimean unit. Pleased with my colour scheme for now. I found some interesting interpretations of the uniforms that don't look right to me, but I'll talk about that in another video. So first of all, ordered from Foundry, so of course you get the obligatory freebie. And this time round, last time we got a French Grenadier, this time round we got what looks like an Ascari. Yep, there we go, an Ascari with a little fez on. That's a cool figure. I'll actually use that. So he goes into the pile of miscellaneous bits and pieces, and then every now and then I sort that out into where it belongs in the lead mountain. So I made a couple of purchases. My mate Dave got more Caesarean stuff, exactly the same pose again, lunatic. But I'm glad he's having fun. He's made a really good start on that already. He's literally cutting all the piler off, drilling a hole in the shaft, and then sinking in a replacement spear tip. Essentially, it's made out of a hardier steel, so that it's not so brittle or not so wobbly and malleable. You know, good for him. Again, lunatic, right? So I bought a couple of packs of these advancing or charging Highlanders. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in, because you don't really need to see the whole table now, you just want to see this. So you get 2 poses. You get 4 at port, and you get 4 charging. Alright? And this is great. I mean, they look absolutely fantastic, don't they? Typical Perry sculpts, really nice. Not too much flash. I mean, obviously it looks horrendous here, but that's not too bad. There's no noticeable mold lines, so I'd say good looking figures. I'm not seeing anything untoward on there. Yeah, it looks good to me. So 2 packs of these, so I won't bother unpacking the second pack, but actually, you know what, I will, since I've got you here, your captive audience, to the degree that you're captive. You can just press the stop button at any time and close the window. Anyway, so more advancing. So what I was going to do with this unit is I wanted to do this unit as a unit of 20 essentially. So we would have 8 of one pose, 8 of the other pose, so that gets us up to 16, and then I was going to use some command figures to make up the rest of the unit. So what I'll do is I'll zoom out in a moment once I've sorted this lot out, but basically we've got the chaps advancing, or attacking I guess, then you have guys behind them advancing at port, and then the last piece of the puzzle is the command. So the command pack has some doubles on it, duplicates, right? Which is unfortunate. Comes in a pack of 6. Comes with 2 pipers. Okay, very nice. It comes with a drummer who's very, very animated, and this is a fantastic figure. And this, I think, is where having a unit size of slightly less than 24, where you're not fighting for as much space, figures like this really come into their own, because he can have a nice prominent spot at the front of the unit. You've got your officer here, and he's pointing. Again, very animated, going to look really good next to that, with that drummer there leading the charge. And then you get 2 of the same ensigns. Oh no, they're not the same. I lied. You get 2 officers of this that are the same, and you get 1 ensign. Well, that looks like a problem. So we're going to have to figure something out there. I think what I may have to do
This is an aside. Turns out that Foundry actually mispacked the command pack that I'd ordered. So as you can see from the picture that I'm showing you right now, I was supposed to receive 2 ensigns, which would make sense, and a single officer, which is what I expected. So needless to say, I've contacted Foundry, and let's see what they say.
Okay, so hear me out. So obviously we have 2 flags per British battalion. So what I'll do is I'll take him as 1 because he's got the correct little sling thing for it. And then what I'll do is I'll probably do some minor surgery on this pointing officer chap. Cut a hand off, or take his hand, bend it, and then I'll open this up so that he can hold the standard. And he's obviously not really meant to be carrying the colours, but I think what I'll do is he'll look like an officer that's picked it up. The uniforms aren't that different actually; they're very similar. So I think what I'll do is, yeah, I'll sort of have to do some minor surgery there to make that work. I don't really want to buy another pack just to get one more standard bearer. See, this is the problem with Foundry. They give you they give you 2 officers, they give you 1 standard bearer, a drummer, and 2 pipers. And the issue here is that you don't want 1 standard bearer. You want 2 standard bearers. You always want 2 standard bearers for the British, right? You're gonna have the Queen's colours, and you're gonna have the Colonel's colours, or so that kind of is a bit of a ball ache, really. Anyway, we'll deal with that later. It's not a big deal. I'm sure we can make a plan. But anyway, what I was going to do, so I said 20, right? So we're at 16, so we need 4 to get to 20. So we've got ensign here. Let's call this guy ensign as well. A drummer and an officer and a piper. So that gets us to 21. And then what I was going to do was take this chap with the pipes, and I was going to put him on the same base as Sir Colin Campbell, the brigadier of the Highland Brigade, right? And then that way the figure's not going to waste, and he's got a little spot there, and Sir Colin will be kept company by somebody skirling away on the pipes, so that'll be pretty sweet. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm a bit annoyed, or not annoyed really, but I'm a bit kind of put off by the whole command pack thing, and this was something that I knew with Foundry going in could be an issue rather. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Enough complaining from me, right? These are just toy soldiers after all. So, but it's one of the slightly bizarre kind of, I suppose, not decisions, but sort of things that Foundry does. So push that off to one side. Those are Scots. So that's a Highland battalion. Okay, so next lot is Russians. So I figured since I'm getting the order in with Foundry, I might as well get some Russians while I was at it. So I went for forage cap wearing Russians, and in great coats, of course. And I thought to myself, right, so similar principle to the Highlanders. So what I did is I bought 4 packs with 8 figures each. So this is 8, 16, 24, 32, right? So again, so divided by 2, that's 16, and then roughly 20-ish. So let's say, they're 19 per battalion there. So we'll do these as under strength, like they've been shot up a bit, right? So again, I'm not too precious on the exact numbers. I just want the overall effect to be at about 24-ish. Now, I've got some other stuff coming in from Ebor Miniatures, and I'll likely put in another order with Foundry before too long, because Dave needs more of the same legionaries that he can cut the piler off and drill holes in and sink them into. Anyway, life choices. So, a couple of things that I noted. So I went for like this advancing pose with the hitched up grey coat. I really like this pose, really nice. Note that there's no knapsack. None of these figures have knapsacks, which is a good thing, because going into combat with your knapsack on is stupid. Apparently the British like doing it. The French dropped theirs off before they advanced, which is like their final tactical bound. Smart move. But this pack has the knapsack. Now that creates a problem for me, because what I don't want is a battalion where half the blokes, where the guys are all interspersed with each other for variety. Half of them have got their knapsacks and the other lot don't have their knapsacks, right? So we want to keep it relatively uniform, because presumably if a colonel or whatever told his regiment, or if a I don't know, like a the battalion commanders would have said, like, look, drop your packs, we're moving forward without them, right? And that probably be a battalion order. I'm not sure, but I imagine that's the kind of thing. Maybe it's company order, I don't know. Anyway, so what I'll do is I'll probably buy, I've got 8 of these now. I'll probably buy another 2 packs of these to get up to 24, and then assign 3 command, and that gets us to 27. And then what I have here gets us to 27 as well, so I don't need to buy any more of these. So that might work, we'll see. I was originally going to mix these 2 poses together because they're both sort of advancing at port, right? So like charging in a sense. But that's obviously not going to work now. So I'm not sure how I'm going to play that out. So I might get, the other option of course is get another command pack, because I can always use more Russian command. That's not going to be an issue. I'll be able to use them somewhere. And then get another 2 packs of these, or maybe another pack of each of these, and then get it back up to that 20 number. I'm not sure. So anyway, I'm not too fussed about that right now. This is kind of gap filling. We can think about that later. But I didn't pay attention. My point is, I didn't pay attention when I was ordering these figures, because I looked on the website after getting these. Look at that noodle. I looked on the website after getting these, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't notice they had the knapsacks and the ones didn't. Not a big deal. I was also going to mix these 2. So this is the guys with the shouldered muskets, and then the guys running. So I wanted these to kind of be at the edges of the units and at the front, and then these guys are towards the center section. The principle being that the Russians, and this comes back to what a conversation I had earlier about bases, this is a case where the square base, the square unit would actually be quite nice, because really with the Russians what you want is you want this, right? You want a nice block, an assault column in the truest sense, which is going to be difficult to accomplish if we go 3 bases, right? Because then we end up with a slightly wonky looking assault column like so, with the front being here. And of course we lose that symmetry that I was talking about earlier. So I'm not quite sure what to do. So again, if anyone out there is watching and has any ideas or thoughts, or you know who you are, please do let me know what your thoughts are, and if you have any sagely advice, it'd be much appreciated. So anyway, the point about this is that I can get started on some Russians, which means I can do things like dial in my paint scheme for them, right? And again, there's no downside that I'll buy too many Russians. They will get used. So I've got some stuff to get started on. The quality of the cast is pretty good. I did notice, I'm not sure if it was just a singular figure, but I saw a pretty hectic mold line over somebody's face earlier. I wasn't too happy about that, but that seems to have been a one-off, because I can't see it again. Yeah, no, it was just a one-off. But anyway, so nominally, I guess we could say we got 2 battalions of Russians ready to go, kind of, sort of, and we've got the battalion of Highlanders ready to go, kind of, sort of. So you know, lots to do, lots to work on. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the Russian greatcoats. Ralph's got a recipe that he's listed on one of his videos, which I quite like, but I don't have the exact same colours. I haven't got the necessary Foundry colour, I think, the quagmire colour. So I may have to get a bit creative there. But I've seen everything from like a very brown grey to a grey to a green grey, and I think there's no downside in kind of varying it, but I'd more or less like the regiments to at least kind of be coherent, so that they all kind of look like they belong together, right? Because presumably, and again this is very presumably, the supply for each regiment would be centralized or whatever, but at least on a battalion level, chances are they're all getting the same greatcoat. But of course in the field it would rapidly deteriorate. But I'm just thinking about the aesthetics here, which is one of the touchstones of this whole project, right? So how do things look? There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, which escapes my mind now. Oh, that was it. One more thing, just a note quickly about the Foundry figures. None of these are grenadiers, so there's no grenadier company here or, who have like a sword. I think Great War does them, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not that precious when it comes to the about this thing when it comes to the Russians. Kind of treating them as a horde army at this point. So obviously, it'd be nice to have a bit of variance, but really, not having a sort of specific grenadier figure, not the end of the world. I can live with that, right? So again, if anybody has any thoughts on basing, please let me know. I'm quite keen on these 60 by 60 bases. I think they've got the right footprint. It's just a question of how many bases, and if 60 by 60 is really not a smart move. If anybody has any alternative advice, please do let me know. I can always buy bases of different sizes, right? I tend to work in 20mm increments, right? So 40s or 60s tend to be a good choice. I haven't considered 80, so if anyone, again, has any thoughts, please do let me know. And that is all for today. Catch you in the next one.